Okay, so today we're going to look at solving logarithmic equations again. So we can read up here. So it says to solve a logarithmic equation, first convert to exponential function and then use the roots property to help you solve that form. So on a previous video, we've actually done this before, although we didn't have the equal to side. We just had the one part, the expression with the log in it. And we had to figure out what the exponent would be. Now we have the exponent, and we're gonna have to figure out what the base is. So with this one, I gave this back. This should be in your notes pages because this is something that we've gone over a few times before. This is how to convert from logarithmic to exponential. And it's much easier to look at this in an exponential form. In fact, you have to convert it in order to solve it because we're gonna have to use some of the root properties here. So if I use these pieces, which I do like color coding if you can't tell, because you can very easily see that if I have log of a certain base here, then that's going to be my base for my exponential function. And then the equal to part over here, b, well, that's my exponent. And then I have c over here, and that's going to be what my exponential function equals, okay? So once I've applied the exponent to that number, that's what I'll get. So if we simply keep that in mind, we can really easily apply it to our equation. So I have a, c, b. So I'm going to rewrite it in exponential form. So I have x squared equals 36. So with this one, I can kind of think about, well, what number do I need to square in order to get 36? So if I, have my squares memorized, which is very helpful, I can do this pretty quickly. Or what I can do is take the square root of both sides. So I can take the square root of both sides, and the square root of x squared is just x, and the square root of 36 is 6. And yes, the calculator does have this symbol on it. Sometimes there's a little 2 here, but usually there's nothing, and that means a square. If there's a number there, it's usually something other than a 2, a 3, a 4, or even sometimes there's a y here or a variable, which says you get to pick the root you're taking. Square is, one of the more common ones, so that's why it's just automatically assumed that if there's nothing there, it's a 2. So definitely available on the calculators. So in this case, x has to be 6. All right, let's see. We're gonna do one more of these. Okay, so this is a very similar idea. We're just gonna use this for a fraction so that we can kind of see how that works. So same idea, I'm gonna apply my logarithmic function. I have a, c, b. So now I'm gonna rewrite it in exponential form. So x to the third power equals 1/125. So I know that I'm applying an exponent of 3, which means that I'm gonna be taking a cube root of both sides, okay? So that's why, pops up here. Now take the cube root of each side. So when you use the calculator on this one, if you are using a calculator, make sure that you choose the one with the 3 there, because if you don't choose the correct one, you're not going to get the correct root, okay? So make sure you choose the cube root. The cube root of x cubed is just x, because remember what I'm asking when I'm taking the root of something. I'm saying it's that number multiplied by itself that many times. So x cubed is x times x times x. I'm multiplying x by itself 3 times. So the number that I multiplied by itself 3 times is x. So that's why x is the cube root. And then for 1/25, well, that would be, the cube root of 1 is 1, because I can go 1 times 1 times 1. I can keep going if I want, but the cube root of 1 would just be 1, because I can multiply by itself how many times I want. And with 125, well, it's 5 times 5 times 5. So it would just be 5, because 5 is what I multiplied by itself 3 times to get 125. And again, you can definitely use calculator on this one. For 1 and 125, I wouldn't type in 1 divided by 125 and then take the cube root of that, because you're going to end up with a really funky decimal there. What I would do is take the cube root of the top and then the cube root of the bottom. So numerator and denominator separately. And then just place it back into the fraction. I wouldn't do a decimal on this one because there is no instructions for rounding. So be careful about that, because if you round when you're not instructed to round, Alex will mark you wrong because you weren't told to do that. Okay, so be very, very careful about following the directions on there just to make sure that you don't get marked wrong for something, kind of like that. But for this one, it's just as easy to take the cube root of 1 and then the cube root of 125 and then put it back into the fraction here. All right, so I hope that helped solving logarithmic functions, and I will see you in the next video.